for me, like the challenge is to really always keep that in mind, like when writing documentation, and always address and represent like all of the uses that are possible, like for this documentation.
Welcome to the Knowledgebase Ninjas Podcast, where Gauri Ramkumar of Document 360 finds the best SaaS self-service knowledge bases in the world and then interviews their creators. Let's get started with today's episode.
Good day, everyone. Our guest today is Lucie Le Naour, Technical Content Developer at GitHub. Welcome, Lucie, to the Knowledgebase Ninjas Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me and having me here.
Pleasure is ours, Lucie. Thank you so much for joining. So, Lucie, I would just simply like to start this podcast with a quick introduction about yourself. Please introduce a bit more. And how did you originally got into documentation, please?
I'm originally like a technical translator. So I started my career like that, and then moved into machine translation, the machine translation industry. And there I basically kind of find a passion for tech, and I still had my passion for content. So I kind of wanted to like combine them both. And that's kind of how I ended up in technical writing. I thought that was a good way of doing a bit of everything.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it's a very good combination, technical content developer. Super. Yeah. So I am aware that you spent nearly 3 years analyzing machine translation for eBay, if you don't mind mentioning. So during that time, Lucie, what kind of improvements did you notice with the quality of the output, please?
So my job was basically to do like quality evaluations on the corpora that was used to feed the engines to train them. So I remember that at the time that I was working there, we were switching from statistical models to neural models in machine translation, and that got to like real improvements, like basically switching the algorithms, and like using another type of model. At the beginning, I remember like the output was not so great, but I don't know, like with technology evolving, it got like scarily good. So I'm not in this industry anymore, but I still kind of follow a little, like what's going on, and I'm impressed with what they've done with this model. Like now, a lot of CAT tools, so these tools that translators are using to translate, like they're powered with MT. Using this model, and it's a great help for translators.
Fantastic. So, Lucie, I'm eagerly looking forward to your process or documentation process at GitHub. And so what is it like in GitHub, and who's normally involved in such documentation process stages?
So my team we're a specific, like a special team. We're basically part of the professional services team. And what we do is that we develop programs and content that is designed at our partners so that they can onboard clients faster, basically. So we're not exactly a documentation team. We work with the documentation produced by the documentation team, but we develop specific content, for training the partners, and so that they can in turn like train the clients. And basically, so I can tell you a little bit about both, like, because GitHub has also made their documentation open source.
Okay.
So it was a huge step for them, and basically, now anyone can open. So on the documentation knowledge base, any developer can contribute. Basically, like open a PR and just say like, hey, this isn't accurate, or I noticed that, or I think it would be great to add that. So they kind of switch to a very much like a community driven like effort. Which I find interesting. because like the open source, like it works the same way as with open source developing. So I thought that was like a nice approach. And then like in my team, what we do is that we're basically so every member of my team is basically responsible for a program or a specialty. Like we all have our specialties, like it could be like a product, or for example, right now I'm focusing on developing content for so that's called like third-party content. So the content that we push on our on other platforms such as Microsoft Learn, or we have some content, for example, on LinkedIn. And these are the partners that we work with on a regular basis. So we're developing content for them, and I'm helping with that. I'm still very much, I started working for GitHub like a month ago. So, like I'm still very much onboarding, and I'm for now, like I'm really touching like a little bit of everything. But basically, like long term, like the goal is for me to specialize in an area and then just own it, and then find the relevant partners to talk to, and it could be really anyone in the company. Like as I'm saying to you right now, like I'm for example right now I'm touching at a little bit of everything. So I'm in touch, for example, right now also with like the SEO team, so that we can produce some content for some GitHub.com pages, and for some other like develop some other guides, that could be useful for redirecting users, to the website. So it could be SEO, it could be, external partners, it could be marketing. We really work with a wide range of people. Like I wouldn't say like everyone at GitHub, but like a lot of people. So it's really interesting.
Fantastic. Very exciting, Lucie. So how do you manage your documentation workflow? I'm cautious that you did mention you are fairly getting used to the different processes, but how do you manage your documentation workflow?
So basically, like GitHub, it's very specific to GitHub. GitHub uses GitHub. So everyone at GitHub, like everything is managed in GitHub. So whenever we wanna try out an idea or produce like any type of documentation, or anything, you just do it in GitHub, and you do it like the same way you do in development. So you want to propose something, you just open an issue, and then you discuss it with your team in the issue. And then once you arrive to a conclusion of what the actions items are, or like what you want to do or not do, then you open you start working on it, and you open a pull request, and then your teammates can review like what you've done, and then it gets integrated. GitHub offers like a lot of possibilities to create documentation. Now you can even I just discovered that you can create websites because it's powered also like with Jekyll and other static website generators. So you have like really simple functions in GitHub that enable you to turn whatever it is, the pages that you're writing in a website. You can use the wikis. You can use like a lot of stuff. But basically, like everything is kind of like managed the same way. Like it's kind of an agile way of work, like our own agile documentation workflow, basically.
Fantastic. Great. So, I think you can bring some experiences from your previous organizations as well. So what are the important factors you consider when creating documentation?
Mostly the number one is user. So like we as technical writers and technical content developers, so we write for specific audiences, and specifically in our case, like we need to be really in touch with our end users, because they will really determine, like what type of program we need to create, or what it is that they want to know specifically about GitHub, what's their level, what's their expectation. So I feel like it's even more, compared to, so in my previous experiences, I was just just technical writer, and I was producing documentation for software. And I mean, like, of course, you could make assumptions more easily, like you had to describe the software anyways. So, like I would write like a lot of like getting started manuals and things like that. So you need to know everything. So you write about everything. But in this case at GitHub, like people are already really technical and skilled, and they want to go even further, like with GitHub and Git. So you really need to get into the details of, like what they want, and then design a program or content to address that. And that could take like many different forms. Like we create videos, we create content, we create, like we are trying maybe to build like some certification programs for GitHub so that people could, like have a way to get certified on GitHub, like about the product and everything. So yeah, like we're basically working on a lot of different formats and different stuff.
Fantastic. So I think my next question is again surrounding the topic that you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. So how important do you think is the choice of words when creating inclusive documentation, and what mistakes have you seen people make?
So basically, yeah. So inclusive documentation, I've already approached that in one of the podcast that you listen to on the Write the Docs community.
Yeah.
So I remember saying back then, like the assumption that people often make is that the person who is going to use that documentation is usually male and white and heterosexual, basically. Mm-hmm. That's more or less like the standard image that we have in our head when we imagine a user. But users they are representative of society. So they can be a woman, they can be a person of color, they can be, like many, many different things. And we tend to underrepresent all these groups. And for me, like the challenge is to really always keep that in mind, like when writing documentation, and always address and represent like all of the users that are possible, like for this documentation, and not like the typical standard user that we think of.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So how do you report on your documentation? And may I ask you, who do you report to?
I have a program training. What's I'm confused because we are changing title. our team used to be programs team. Now we're called content and enablement team. Mm-hmm. But basically, yeah, we have like a programs manager, and she oversees kind of like everything that we're doing and helps out where needed. And she guides us. As I said, like we all have like a specialty like a program that we're owning. So she supports like each and every of us, like in all of these different specialties.
Fantastic. So I think we spoke about the important factors while creating documentation. Mm-hmm. I just want to touch base on another factor that you might consider. Mm-hmm. So when identifying the kind of depth of information to give to certain user groups, because you mentioned that you work with different groups. So what factors do you consider?
Can you elaborate a little? Like, because there's a lot of different factors.
I mean, you can just note just down your top 2 or 3 factors that you consider, depending upon the information that you give to certain user groups.
I mean, level of knowledge.
That's right. Kind of identifying the kind of depth of information.
Like to know how far like you have to go in your explanations. If you're talking to a first-time user, or if you're talking to someone who who's already worked with GitHub and Git. And then like also maybe the industry that these people are working in, because you need to think of like examples that will be relevant to them. So they could, I don't know, like they could be working for any type of software company, or they could be, like developing a lot of different sort of software. So like you want to create examples that are relevant to them and that are going to resonate. So that's what I would say, like level of knowledge and then like industry in my case.
Fantastic. That's your opinion, right?
Yeah. It could be different. Like, I mean, like depending on who, like your documentation team or what company you're working for. But in my case, like, these are really important.
Fantastic. So again, in your opinion, what has been the most important innovation when it comes to document tracking during your career?
During my career, I don't know, because like I feel like I did a little apprenticeship. I started by that because I wanted to learn like the basics of technical writing. And in the company where I was working, we were using mostly data. And then when I started working, so the company I worked for after, I exclusively worked with GitHub and with Git. So I don't know, it feels like I went from like more traditional language and tools to directly, like into the agile workflows and like like more, I mean, I want to say modern tools. Because you need to be delivering documentation at the same pace as developers are basically developing. So I didn't have much time to actually like do a lot of comparison. Like I feel like I've been working with GitHub and Git forever now. But like, I don't know, I find these tools great, like in terms of tracking, and I don't know, I liked that these tools are reflecting of what the developers use, like basically using the tools that like the authors of the code are using. Like that really helps. Like you get in the same mindset and you get you work the same way, so it gets easier. And you're not like completely separated.
Yeah. Super. You did mention that GitHub has become more like an open source for anybody to come and write. Yeah. So am I correct in assuming that you are generating any organic search traffic from your knowledge base? Are you aware of this?
Like in my case, I don't know yet about that because like I just started and I haven't gotten to that part yet, like in my onboarding. And also like the resources that we are producing with my teams, like they're mostly internal. So I'm not sure about like the external facing documentation or that is produced by the documentation team, for example. Like I would not be able to tell you at this point. Sorry.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. Maybe in the next time when we meet, we might.
Yeah, maybe when I'm more than 1 month in my job. Yeah.
Super. So I think we are good to move to the rapid fire round, Lucie. Who have you learned the most about documentation from in your career?
From developers, actually. When I was working for the startup called Relayer, that's where I learned the most, actually, because I started documenting APIs and things that I had never heard about before, and they really they really helped me, like shape my knowledge. And also like help me discover like all of these tools that we could use, like to best to best document APIs, and it was a lot of collaboration, like with developers. I learned a lot from them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Very nice. So I'm sure you might be reading a lot of contents out there. So can you share a documentation related resource you have recently consumed?
A documented related, at the moment I'm reading a lot about UX. I read a lot of things that are coming from UX. Wait, I'm looking for that's UX Planet or UX Collective on Medium. And they have a lot of, it's not necessarily, documentation related, but it's a lot about product management and product design. And it helps to, sometimes also some writers, some technical writers write in that blog, just to know, to present to people how documentation and design and product can better work together, and how things could be integrated. And I find it a very useful blog.
Fantastic. Thank you. So last question for the day. What is the one piece of documentation related advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
To my 20-year-old self. I wasn't even in this industry when I was 20. I don't know, just listen, for me, I really get a lot from a lot of different people. I learn a lot from developers, designers, product managers. The advice that I would give is to basically work with everyone. You can, in a company, you can learn so much, and you can bring so many practices from other domains into your own. So that would be the advice, I guess.
Fantastic. So I think, Lucie, we are almost to the end of the podcast. Is there anything I missed to ask you today that you would like to convey to our audiences?
I don't think so. What more can I say? Documentation is the future. We want documentation integrated in products, and in everything. And just believe in yourself.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think that speaks a lot. Believe in yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So Lucie, good luck with your new adventure, and we wish you all the best for your future projects within GitHub, and continue your community contributions too, and have a lovely, lovely weekend.
Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend too.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Knowledgebase Ninjas Podcast. Please head to iTunes, rate, and provide honest feedback on the podcast. See you next week.